Today on the show, is that Jason Concepcion's music? Let's talk about Dune.
Welcome to Gom Jabbar, your guide to the iconic world of Dune. We'll be exploring the themes, philosophies, and characters found in the sandy depths of this vast universe, from Frank Herbert's groundbreaking novels to the adaptations on film and TV. My name's Abu.
My name's Leo.
And Leo, I am giddy with excitement today.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, me too.
Because we have a very, very special guest.
Who is it? Tell us.
Jason Concepcion himself.
Ah!
Jason!
Hello!
Hi!
Hello! It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you
Jinx.
for being here. We are huge fans of yours, Jason, and longtime followers of your work.
Yeah.
For our listeners that don't know, Jason is an Emmy-award-winning podcaster and writer, host of the X-Ray Vision and Takeline and all caps NBA at Crooked Media. I can't say all of the things you do in one breath, clearly. And obviously, we are big fans of you from your time at Binge Mode.
Right.
Over at The Ringer.
Thank you so much.
And today you're joining us to talk all about Dune.
I can't wait to talk about it.
Because you're actually a big Dune fan, right?
I'm a huge Dune fan. I've read the book multiple times. I read it for the first time in high school, and I have read it maybe yearly ever since, at least in parts, like not all the way through, but I'll read parts of it pretty regularly. I just think it's great. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a couple of housekeeping things, Jason, that we want to quickly get out of the way before we jump into the main discussion with you.
Sure.
First and foremost, today is going to be a no-holds-bar spoiler discussion. All the books, the extended canon, all the movies, the Lynch film, the Denis Villeneuve film, everything. Primarily, we're going to be focusing on the new film.
Right.
But just so our listeners are aware, this discussion could veer very quickly off into very spoiler territory.
Right.
So you've been warned.
As always, you can write to us if you have thoughts, questions, comments, concerns at gomjabarpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from you.
That's right. And final bit of housekeeping, we do have a Patreon where you can support us. You'll have early access to book club episodes and a bunch of goodies and bloopers. We also have a merch store, gomjabarshop.com, where you can look at all of the cool custom designs that Leo himself put together for our cool merch.
Some of them.
So 2 great ways to support the show.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So to the main discussion, Jason.
Yeah.
Our listeners have heard plenty from us at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So much.
So today we want to focus on your thoughts and your opinions on the film and the
Sure.
Dune franchise as a whole. And we figured to sort of limit ourselves from talking for hours and hours about Dune.
Yeah.
We'd focus it to just the 2 sort of key takeaway things that you loved about the film, that you took away after watching it multiple times now, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 things that maybe didn't work for you or you thought fell short or didn't quite match your own vision of it as a longtime Dune fan.
Oh, wow. Gosh.
So let's jump into the 2 things that you liked first.
Mm-hmm.
Talk us through the first thing that you picked.
I loved how loyal it was to the book.
Yeah.
In plot and in kind of like vibe and texture. It maintained, I think there's a world in which the lesson of the David Lynch Dune experience for a major motion picture studio is like, that's too fucking weird. Let's not do anything weird this time.
Right.
And that's not what happened. It maintained like all the appropriate weirdness. Mm-hmm. It is a story about a teen who trips out in the desert, like on a space hallucinogen and just gets super weird. So that's all in there.
Right.
I think the casting was kind of like dead on perfect,
Yeah.
Chalamet, I'm a fan. I think he's really good. We didn't get a lot of Zendaya's Chani, but still, I think it has the kind of like presence that is so appropriate for the role. And like Bardem's Stilgar was awesome.
Oh my God.
So good.
Unbelievable.
Just like a salty guy. Every line reading was like just completely like off the top rope. And such a huge like contrast to Everett McGill, who had, Everett McGill was fine. He had a very regal presence.
Yeah.
But like Bardem brought this discomfort and confidence, but also a discomfort within the halls of power.
Yeah.
Around discomfort around outsiders kind of thing.
Yeah.
That I really liked. I love the way he I love the way he leaves.
Yes.
After Duke Leto is like, hey, listen, we're going to go where we have to go because the emperors might tell me to go into the desert and then I have to go there. So like honor would command me to go to the desert, but your Seaches are yours. Like I'm never gonna fuck with the Seaches. And then Bardem's got this, like, he just is like, that's very honorable. I must go. And then he's just like, I'm leaving. That's it. I'm going to go. And I love that. I just love, he had this very like twitchy, random, hard to pin down energy that was, I thought, great for a character who is obviously so distrustful of off-worlders, outsiders, people from outside of his community. So I really like that.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of Villeneuve's. I love Sicario.
Yeah.
I thought Arrival was fine. I thought Blade Runner 2049 sucked, but everything has always looked great.
Right.
And I think Dune just looks great. Like it looks. Yeah. Richard Brody had a really funny review in the New Yorker that was like, it's funny how cheesy the new Dune looks. That's his opening line. I was like, man, I totally disagree. Like, he did go for a very like natural light. This is really happening, like not heightened at all. This is what it would look like if you were on this planet, kind of like cinematographic look and feel. And I loved that. I loved how small the characters were often against the backdrop of the landscape, against the worm, against the spice harvesters and stuff, really giving you that sense of like immense scale. And then like there are so many through lines with the like design language, not just of like Jodorowsky's like aborted Dune,
right?
But Lynch's Dune, like a lot of the design stuff that was so striking from those projects is kind of like still here. Mm-hmm. That weirdness, the Harkonnens, like the darkness of them and the grossness of them comes through, not in the kind of Lynchian way where like for no apparent reason there's like lancing Baron Harkonnen's like pimples, but it's still like off-putting, which I think is correct. And again, just like the overall weirdness, this is a weird story. It came out in the mid-'60s,
right?
As this kind of like psychedelic wave was cresting, and that is very much present in the book. That is a big part of it. It's about consciousness expanding. It's about tapping into the kind of like innate human power through the expansion of the consciousness and the mind. And all that stuff is there, man.
Yeah.
Paul trips out. Paul fucking gets an ambient hit of spice and just like loses his shit,
right? Which
I think is fantastic. I can't wait to see how they approach some of the things going forward.
No kidding. Yeah.
I was a little bit concerned that walking out of there that maybe we wouldn't get part 2, but now that's been announced and we know we have part 2. So I'm excited. And I think, I'm very interested, as I'm sure y'all have talked about. This is book 1 is the normal one.
Yeah.
That's the book. It's the hero's journey, Harry Potter going to school, Luke Skywalker. It's all that shit. It's that hero cycle of a young person who enters into a new world, finds new powers, and then leaves forever changed.
Right.
The books after that are very much not the normal ones. Like that's when Herbert's cynicism and kind of his cynicism about power really comes out, and it subverts a lot of the expectations that were set up in book 1, I think, and set up because people just come into a book like that with preconceived notions about what a fantasy story, sci-fi story is gonna be like. And book 1 definitely fulfills those.
Yeah.
Books 2 and 3, don't. So I'm fascinated to see where he goes with it.
Yeah.
But if he stays loyal to that, that will be a very brave thing, and I'll be excited to see it.
Yeah. Did you have preconceived notions going into this film of what you were expecting and where they met?
I mean, I think the thing, it had already been out there that this was only about half the first book.
Right.
So I was just wondering, like, where is the stop? Where do we stop? Where's the natural stopping point? And I think walking out, I was like, I wonder if people will be confused by that.
Right.
Because it does just kind of end.
Yeah.
Like abruptly.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a way, again, that as a book reader feels great, but also if I'm a non-book reading fan of big popcorn sci-fi tentpole movies, I walk out of the end of that and I'm just like, what? That was a little. So then, where are we going to? Like, what happens? So they just like walk off and leave. So I'm delighted that it seems like people are not confused by it.
Right.
But I think just like, how is this going to translate? Is this going to be as weird as it kind of needs to be loyal to the book? And if it is weird, how will people respond to it? Because it is in a lot of ways not, it gets compared to Star Wars because of the Space Empire shit. And clearly there's a lot of through lines there, as there are from Foundation, the other great Space Empire book that came out about 10 years before Dune. But it's a lot weirder than those.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Quite consciously. So like, will people like that?
Yeah.
Like that's my only, that was really my only question. And, like, will people like, if it goes to the subversion area, like, will people like that? Because, movie 1, and I'm sure movie 2, will set people up to be like, oh, fuck, Paul Atreides, man, that's my guy. That's Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah,
like, we're doing it. Holy shit. Like, we're going to change the universe.
Yeah.
This guy is the hero that the galaxy has been waiting for, yada, yada, yada. That's definitely not
and
it.
then Messiah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Right. And then the comparisons to Hitler.
Right. Yeah. We'll see how people feel about that when the character that the first 2 movies are based on, that they hopefully fell in love with, turns into Space Hitler.
Right. So do you think, like you said, the one part of this movie you loved so much was the accuracy to the book, honoring that source material as closely as possible. Do you think part 2 can continue to be that accurate? And in the books, like, where do you think the cutoff of how accurate to weird we can be?
Oh, man.
Like,
how weird.
Worm God, I feel like, is unfilmable, but maybe I'm just not into weird movies.
I mean, maybe there's I think that Worm God is probably unfilmable. Like, I think that Gola Duncan, Idaho is honestly a fucking stretch. Like, I feel like that's something we got to set up in movie 2.
I mean, Jason Momoa over here is like, make my career, like make my next decade.
Right. I think if you come in movie 3 with like, here's a whole new concept, the Gola, I think people will be like, what? I feel like that's something that you got to set up a little bit. Like, it gets obviously a lot more psychedelic in the second half of the book with the Water of Life stuff and with the introduction of Aaliyah and the way she grows up, like, over the course of, like, in 2 weeks, she's like walking and talking and like making sex jokes. So I think that will be a lot. Now, the great thing about the second half of the book is it's also like where all the action is.
Right.
So, you can kind of sprinkle in the weirdness in between, Fremen raids and the fucking duel with Fade Ralph and shit. But they said this was unfilmable and they were wrong. And so I wait to see what's next. I do like one big change that I like that they made was like no tanks for the Spacing Guild like navigators. They're not like sitting in a huge tank, like talking to people from inside of a tank. I like that it was just the helmet. That is a cleaner look.
Yeah.
And so I think if you make little changes like that, where it's like, okay, this makes more sense on the screen than some fucking guy in a big aquarium of spice talking from inside there, then that
The
makes
fish
sense.
from that Guillermo movie.
Shape of Water.
In a tank.
Yes. Or even like the David Lynch, like mutated like navigators from the David Lynch movie with the weird like butthole mouths and shit.
The close up on the butthole. Yeah.
Goopy butthole mouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be some changes in part 2. Like, Alia, for instance, I don't think can be like actually a 2-year-old. She'll probably have to be aged up a little bit for that not to be so weird.
You don't think they're going to do like a Jim Henson prosthetic? Like a little puppet 2-year-old? Like a Muppet?
Like she walks off and then comes back and it's 5 minutes later, but she's 3 years like older or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you're right. I mean, I think they'll go the route of just because of how easy it is, how much easier it is to work with someone older. I think they'll probably go the Lynch route where they get like a younger actress, maybe 8, 9, 10 or something like that. Or maybe even like, maybe they leap forward and do like a teenage Aaliyah.
Yeah.
Which I guess would make sense for the stuff that happens in Dune Messiah. But that is where I think it gets significantly weirder for like the normal audience is like Aaliyah and that stuff.
I'm curious what they're going to do with Timothy. How do you make Timothy look like a grizzled late 20s guy, like man, when he already nails the sort of young teenager so well, just as like as an aesthetic? I don't know.
I would imagine that you just let it go. You just let it go, right? You just let him age at his normal rate, and he will look fine. He's already playing a character who's like 8 years younger than he is, or something like that. I think that part of it is fine. I wonder if there will be any time jumps and stuff like that. That is a thing that I've thought about.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, I think that they can keep this cast. The other thing that I was a little bit like, like not even a mention of Fade Routha. Like, do they bundle Raban and Fade Routha into an amalgamation character? I guess that's still on the table, right? I think that would be a little weird because they've basically set up Raban as like the dumb guy, which he is. And Fade Routha is like the smarter guy who is like constantly trying to kill his uncle, which I think is such a funny part of the book. And he's just like constantly plotting to kill his uncle. It's like Pink Panther, and Kato type shit. Yeah. So that is the part that I'm, the casting for part 2, I'm really eager to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's already rumors circulating about that too. I'm curious. You mentioned you liked that a lot of the weirdness was maintained in this movie. Yeah. Boy trips in the desert. All of that is in this adaptation. What other weird parts did you enjoy? Like, what were your thoughts on things like the Bene Gesserit and how they were represented, the voice?
Oh, I love the voice.
Like, what other weird parts of this movie did you like?
Yeah, I love the voice. I love the way it is a blend of different voices, whether it's no matter who is speaking, right? It's like a blend of the Reverend Mother's voice and maybe some voices that we don't recognize, but then it's also Paul's voice and then it's also Jessica's voice, all of which is kind of a great metaphor, especially for those who haven't read the book, for what the Bene Gesserit as an organization and as like powerful individuals are capable of. They have access to the genetic memories of all these past Bene Gesserit sisters. So like for the way I took it was with the way the voice kind of like is all these different people is you're calling on the power and the experience in that moment of all these different individuals through genetic memory. And so I thought that was really cool. I kind of wish they would have gone into the Mentats a little bit more.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought the Bene Gesserit we got just enough. Like I could have gone for more, but like, UA gives a nice little download on Bene Gesserit are up to something. They're doing stuff, which you'd think other people would have talked about by now, but it's weird that like Paul, you haven't heard this yet? The Bene Gesserit are like up to shit. So that's weird that it isn't talked about more. But the Mentats, we barely kind of went into what they are. And I guess I kind of missed like, Peter DeVries, I would have liked some Twisted Mentat, a little bit more, a sprinkling more of Twisted Mentat in the movie. He goes out pretty fast. Yeah. But like Mentats in general as a counterweight to the Bene Gesserit, within the kind of culture and lore of Dune, I thought is obviously really important. And I would have loved to get a little bit more of that, especially if, maybe they'll go away from this, but like, especially because in the book, there's that idea that Paul is Mentat and
right.
Bene Gesserit, so like that idea is so powerful. I could have done with a dash more Mentat.
Yeah, we're in agreement. We've talked about that too. It was a bummer that Thufir didn't get more love. We got a little bit of eyeball action, and then that was kind of about it.
I mean, he offers to resign, and then that's it. We kind of lose track of him, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Spoiler that we'll see him in movie 2, unspooling his spider's webs as he attempts to undermine the Harkonnens while also like clearly helping them.
Man, for like a solid 2 or 3 seconds, I thought you meant literal spider webs from that spider creature. I was like, he's just trying to get out of a weird spider web trap. As long as there's no like milking cat, I think I'm going to be pretty happy.
I'm glad that that's not there. I'm glad there's no milking cat. I'm glad there's no like crushing like a mouse in a juicer and then drinking it out of a straw. Like, I'm glad that stuff is not in there.
God.
Yeah. Well, we're already sort of veering into some critique territory. So let's actually jump to, you had 2 things that you had in our script here that you wanted to talk about that didn't quite work for you.
Sure.
So let's talk about some of your critiques.
And this is really small.
Yeah.
But the main one I had was the shield fighting.
Yeah.
Now, as you all know, shield fighting is it's very important in the book, not just because of the way it frames the action, particularly between like warring armies, be it the Sardaukar and House Atreides forces or whoever, and the Fremen, whoever.
Right.
But because of the way it colors the instincts of Paul when he is later dueling with people, with Jamis, and dueling with Fade Routha, like that understanding of, oh, this person has fought with a shield. There's the little bit of delay. They're favoring this side. They're waiting for the blade to hit before they strike back. And so that like factors into a lot of Paul's calculations. And it just kind of like didn't work for me. This is not to say that obviously the David Lynch like shield fighting shit looks hokey as fuck.
The PlayStation 2s.
Yeah. But I thought that they really conveyed like what it was, that the slow blade is what penetrates, that anything that's moving at a kind of like killing pace, an arm swinging pace, is just not going to get through projectiles. That's why projectile weapons are not, they're basically useless in this future, because they're just not going to penetrate anything. And so when we see Duncan fighting Sardaukar and he's just like slashing them and then they die, I thought that could have been done better. Now they do give you like the blue versus red, so the blue for like the shield parrying the blow, and then the red for it's getting in. But you don't really see it. I mean, when the House Atreides troops are at the top of the stairs and they're fighting attempting to repel the Harkonnen troops, it's just kind of like a blur of stuff. And then like even when you would have thought, okay, here's an opportunity for like a really cool like set piece, like the kind of set piece that like after this movie comes out, someone's going to log into YouTube and be like Duncan, Idaho sacrifice in the room, like in the
station,
like ecology station. Yeah. Duncan, Idaho fights versus Sardaukar, like, and there's your real chance to make something that is like visually compelling and that stands alone as like a piece of set piece action, much like the throne room fight from The Last Jedi does,
Right.
And that didn't happen, and that never really materializes. I would say, and this is again a nitpick because I don't think the action is bad, but I would just say like the action could have been super compelling, and it just kind of wasn't.
Yeah.
And in particular, the shield fighting, I thought could have been done in a way that was both more aesthetically, driving, and also explained like what was going on. Like could have been shot in a way that, yeah, I'm going to tell Denis Villeneuve how to do his job now, but like could have been done in a more like, you know, a more compelling way. That's that. And again, it's a nitpick.
Right.
But, you know, it's like, you know, like when Duncan is like killing the starter car, he's just kind of like slashing full speed and then they die.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought it could have been done better. That's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's totally valid. You know, Abu and I have talked about how we think that the fight scenes, especially one-on-one fight scenes, needed just a handful more anime.
Yeah.
Give us some like stretch time, some like in the perspective of the characters. What are they thinking about? Where are they focused? What are they worried about? Make it more of a like slowed down narrative fight scene.
Right.
If you're going to honor the shield kind of element. And then the other thing, and I've thought more about this, Abu, since we talked about it with Elaine, but you know, we were talking about how in the books, they don't really address how Holtzman shields deal with force.
Right.
They just kind of repel, but where does that force go? Does it get transmitted at all? And we see Duncan hop into that ornithopter. You know, he flies up, he rocket shoots a bunch of grounded ships. The ship gets hit by a projectile and it, you know, gets pushed in the air.
Right.
Which I think lends credit to my theory that Duncan motherfucking Idaho is just swinging with like a 200-pound swing. So even though it's repelled by the shield, he's just crushing rib cages. Like he's just brute forcing these Holtzman shields. That's my headcanon. That's my theory.
Yeah, I think that works. I mean, I like that theory.
Yeah, and I wish, and honestly, you know, like those kind of the slow projectiles that hit the shield and then keep driving through, as we saw the Duke get taken out by one, Dilf Leto,
right.
And we saw like the various like Atreides ships get taken out by projectiles like that. Again, I know what's going on, so I'm like, I get it, but I just wonder if it could have been done in a little bit of a better way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I guess if, you know, part of this is like, you know, again, not to Marvel movie this, but like it could have been, some of these fights could have been fucking cool.
Yeah.
You know, like could have been like really, really, like the Duncan Idaho one in particular was a chance to do something really like that stands alone as a striking piece of like action choreography. And not that it's bad, but just that it could have been more.
Right. Yeah, it could have been Daredevil hallway one shot.
Yes.
You know, the thing you YouTube and watch over and over again.
That kind of shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Did your feelings about that choreography extend to the Jameis fight at the end too? Because to me, that was partly also why the movie kind of felt like it ended.
Yeah.
Because maybe Marvel movies have trained me to expect like a big third act, but it was kind of that fight was a bit of a letdown for me.
It did. I thought, listen, I don't know how much of this is like, does Timmy want to do like 6 hours of like hand-to-hand kung fu, like, you know, a day for 2 months to get, I don't know if that's what it is, but it again felt like, you know, part of what is central about Duke Leto's plan is that, okay, the Sardaukar are the best trained, most brutal, most capable troops in the galaxy, and you can't really challenge the power of the Emperor unless you can come up with troops that like can possibly match them. And he's like almost done it with the help of Duncan and with Thufir Hawat's strategic mind behind him, and Gurney Halleck as War Master. But like the Fremen are a notch above because of like the brutal, you know, environment that they live in, because of their particular warrior culture. And so for Paul to take out a Fremen like that, I felt like we needed to understand like what a big deal that is.
Yeah.
You know, because I think if I go into that as not a book reader and like say you substitute a Sardaukar for Jamis, right? Mm-hmm. Based on what you've seen, you probably have very little expectation that Paul like beats a Sardaukar like in 1-to-1 combat, right? But like that's essentially what he has done. He's beaten a fighter who's better than a Sardaukar, who's better than the Navy SEALs of the galaxy, and because it's so like naturalistically shot and choreographed, you know, with a lot of like the action kind of like blurring off out of the frame and stuff like that, it doesn't really land what a fucking achievement this is.
Right. Yeah.
Like he took out basically with ease like a hardened Fremen warrior. So that should have felt like a bigger deal than it felt like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The attack on Arrakeen, while big and epic, and I loved seeing the shields contain the explosions, like within it looked very cool, but it was very hard to follow because it was dark and like a blur of bodies and shields smacking into each other. So we're definitely in agreement on that.
Part 2 needs to have like some real fucking crazy act. Like we need to see it. Like it's got to be some real set piece shit. I'm hoping that is the case for the second movie.
Right. I mean, the shield wall getting blown up.
Yeah.
Worms coming down. Like, that's got to look crazy.
Yeah.
And it's got to look unbelievable. The fucking duel with Fade Routha, that's got to be like, Jackie Chan type stuff,
Ip Man. Yeah.
Yes. Like, that's what I'm hoping for when we get this.
I will say I loved the like vision of the Golden Warriors diving and like the choreography of that scene where he's, he like rolls over someone, spins, stabs, slashes, that whole thing with the sandworms like exploding in the background. I was like, this is so fucking cool. So I know it's there, like in the creative vision somewhere.
Yes.
I just hope that it's tapped at the right times. Yeah, in part 2.
I agree. It was also, to be fair, it was also like probably not Chalamet. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like it probably was only that was probably only his face, like on a CG stuntman's body. So that part of it, like again, and this is not to cast aspersions on Timmy, who I think is one of our great actors, but I think that was probably not him. And I wonder if he can, all of which is to say is I wonder if he can sell the action at the level that we're talking about. And I got to stress again, this is like a nitpick.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's small. Yeah.
It doesn't in any way ruin this movie. I loved this movie.
Yeah.
But if there's a way that they could take it up a level, it's with the action.
Definitely.
I had the same thought. Gurney comes into the training room. He goes, "Don't stand with your back to the door." And the person, presumably Timothée Chalamet, does this incredible like triple flip slash attack on the dummy, but with his back to the camera. And then it cuts around and it's Timothy's face and he goes, "I'm not in the mood, Gurney."
Yeah. Well, maybe in the anime,
Yeah.
In the fingers crossed Dune anime adaptation someday.
On Disney Plus, Dune Visions. Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here, but stick around. Seriously, when we're back from the break, we're going to talk about drafting a basketball team from Dune characters. So I know you all love sports. Let's get into it right after this break.
Okay, well, Jason, we had a couple more very, very important questions we wanted to ask you.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's maybe jump into the second half of today's episode where we wanted to pick your brain about some really important stuff.
Of course.
Vital.
Of course.
First and foremost.
Yeah.
Jason, we know you're big on basketball. And I don't know if it's been clear to our listeners, but like me and Leo, two huge nerds, like not sports people.
It's okay.
But we wanted to play to your strengths.
Yes.
And I kid you not, I like Wikipedia basketball positions because we wanted to ask you to step into the shoes of the head coach of the Arrakeen Desert Eagles basketball team.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we wanted to get your pick for who is in your starting lineup of all the characters across the entire Dune saga and the entire universe.
Yes.
Who would make it into your starting lineup?
Okay, let's do it. Let's start with, gosh, at point guard, I mean, this is going to be crazy, but I thought Muad'Dib, the actual animal. The actual mouse. The mouse,
the desert
like,
mouse.
The desert mouse, it's clever, knows how to survive in the deep desert. The smallest player on the court is often the point guard. So I thought that would be a great place for the desert mouse, who is so important to, Paul Atreides' rise in the esteem of the Fremen. Like it's the fact that he is drawn to this animal and that he goes, "Hey, what's the rat?
Yeah.
What is that?" And then they're like, "Oh, Muad'Dib?
Yeah.
Holy shit, you are the Lisan Al Gaib. Oh my God. Like, wow.
That's the point guard of our basketball team. How did you know that?
Did you, how the fuck? So I think that Muad'Dib, the actual
Yeah.
The actual mouse, the actual animal. And by the way, I'm glad we saw the desert mouse
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Oh
Totally.
my gosh.
in part 1. I'm glad that we saw that.
Give me that merch.
So cute.
What do you think his ball handling skills would be though? At a very tiny, like,
I honestly think
half a foot tall.
if you underrate him, you're gonna be in for a surprise, because I mean, again, this is an animal that thrives in a incredibly harsh environment where there is no water, like none. Where does he get the water? Don't worry about it.
His ears.
Right.
It could be.
Yeah.
As shooting guard, I'm going to have Paul.
Okay.
I'm going to have Paul take most of the shots here. I want Paul to be my scorer. My whole team is just like, can we set up Paul Atreides?
Yeah.
And ride the hot hand of Paul Atreides. I think that, this is a little bit of like an anachronism in terms of the league, but I'm thinking like Michael Jordan was a shooting guard. I want my most charismatic player to be the shooting guard.
Right.
And so I want that to be Paul Atreides, obviously a super charismatic guy. All the legends fit him.
Yeah.
So that's what we want. We want the guy who all the legends say this is the guy to be front and center. And so that's Paul.
Yeah. As his coach, are you telling him to lean into the prescience on the court or to reel it in? Like, should he be?
I want him to lean into it.
Sure.
As long as it doesn't like distract him from what is actually, like, I could see a thing where it's like we go to the sideline, he's like, give me the water of life. He drinks the water of life out of like a Gatorade squeezy, and then we go back out to do the play, and then it's like 3 years later, we're all like, Paul, and he's just like, everything happened in 2 seconds in his mind. And he doesn't realize that he's been standing on a basketball court for like 3 years. So that's a danger, but I think it's one that we'll deal with, because this guy can sell merch. He's gonna not just win games for you, but he can sell sneakers. He's obviously going to sell a lot of Stillsuit boots,
right?
Fitted desert style,
Play without rhythm. Yeah,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing, and. Okay, so small forward, I think we need some experience on the team. We need some veteran guile. I'm going to go with Revmo, the Reverend Mother.
Oh, yeah.
I call her Revmo G. First of all, she's going to know all the plays that are being called. She's going to know everything that's happening.
Yeah.
It's part of the Missionaria Protectiva. Yeah.
Yes, and it's like... So you don't know, like, you legitimately don't know, like, when the opposing team is like discussing strategy, they have no idea, like, is this really the right strategy to like play against the Arrakeen Desert Eagles, or is this like a legend that was planted centuries ago by like the sisters of Revmo G?
Right.
The other thing is, like, if you're guarded by her, you're always thinking that Gom Jabbar, it's going to stick in my leg, it's going to stick in my stomach or something. So she's going to shut you down defensively.
Right.
Power forward, this is a little outside the box, but I think the Beast Raban. I just want a guy who's going to crash fucking. You just tell him, I want you to go to the basket and squeeze.
Right.
Squeeze. Every rebound.
My court.
Yes, that's yours. Block every fucking shot. You grab every rebound. Every loose ball is yours, Raban. I want you to fucking squeeze. And then he says, like, what about our opponents?
Mm-hmm.
And I say, you fucking kill them all.
Kill them all.
Like, you wipe them out. Genocide. You kill everyone. And he just goes, yes. Okay, good.
Yes, uncle.
So I want Raban at power forward. And then at center, I saw somebody else pick this too, and I think it's right. Get the Baron in there. He's got the suspensors.
Yeah.
Does that mean, like, I think that literally means he's never traveling. Like, if you throw him the ball and he just floats to the basket, I think that's good because he's taken 0 steps.
Right.
So a little bit of a loophole there. And, it's just a very wily, a little bit of a brilliant character. I think you could say he's probably a locker room cancer because he's constantly thinking about, like, how can I pit people against? He's like, how can I pit my coach against the star? What if I what if I secretly set up an assassination attempt for Paul? But that's all part of team building.
Right.
But I think the fact that you can throw it to him off the pick and roll and he just floats to the basket, I think is so valuable that I think you have to have him.
Yeah.
You have to have him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also we forget about this, but he's Paul's uncle.
Right.
So there is that family bond there.
Granddad,
whatever it is, cousin,
yeah.
third, fourth cousin, a million times removed.
He's got that family.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Blood relation.
That is my team.
Makes a difference. Yeah.
Right. And that I think helps you to sort of Ted Lasso this ragtag group and get them to believe, that helps you keep him in line.
Right.
Yes. I think it's huge. I think that it's a well-balanced team. And so I'm really excited about it. And we've never, there's never in sports history has a player played with the source of their nickname.
Hey.
Magic Johnson did not play with magic.
Literal magic, yeah.
With literal magic. But we have that here with Paul Muad'Dib playing with Muad'Dib. So that's huge.
Right. Yeah, wow. This is a Pixar movie in the making, starring Muad'Dib and his come up on the court.
Like Ratatouille.
Yeah.
Paul takes his hat off and there's a mouse holding his hair.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, that is a solid team. And again, who are we to tell you you're wrong about basketball, Jason? Clearly. But we also made some picks.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with it, we'd love to share them with you. And maybe you can just rate our picks and maybe poke some holes in why those would be bad ideas.
Sure.
So let me share my picks.
Yeah.
For point guard, I also went sort of small, quick person.
Sure.
Not quite as small and quick as Muad'Dib.
Yeah.
But I picked Chani.
Great.
We know she's solid on her feet. We saw at the end of the movie that she criticized Paul for climbing up the hardest way. She can move.
She can move.
Yeah.
So I feel like
Is she on the birth control poisons at this time, unbeknownst to her?
I don't have Irulan on my team, so I think I'm safe. I don't think I have any.
She's just
any
Irulan's like, hey, Charlie, I made your lunch again.
Right.
Make sure to eat all of it.
Right. Here's your Gatorade bottle that I specifically made for you.
Yeah, drink that all down. Don't forget to get every last drop of that.
Right. That weird taste, it's just the electrolytes. They added more electrolytes.
Don't worry about it.
In shooting guard, I had Jessica. I chose her because I figured a combination of all of her skills, the voice, the weirding way. We know she, overpowered Stilgar.
She fucked Stilgar up.
Is obviously already a very competent fighter.
He's great at basketball. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it threw that whole siege into disarray when that happened, but it was impressive.
Right. So, she can bring some of that deadliness to the court, I hope.
Yeah.
In small forward, I also had Paul on my team in a different position, but I think it's important to have Paul on your team, considering most powerful human in the known galaxy at that point.
Sure.
His prescient abilities are unmatched. He would be out here anticipating things long before they happened. Mm-hmm. So I think, just like you, Jason, I would tell him to really lean into the prescience and take that risk of him maybe falling into a 2-year trance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in power forward, I also had sort of a bigger, tougher guy, but I went Duncan Idaho.
Nice.
Mainly based off of Jason Momoa, because I Googled everyone's height in the movie. Because in the movie, everyone doesn't look their proper height. Jason Momoa is like 6'7", apparently, according to the internet.
The hell?
Yeah, he looks like the guy.
Yeah. So
big, tough, and we know he can take down a number of Sardaukar, and that shields don't matter for him. So I feel like he could...
He ignores rules.
he could really be controlling the court that way. Very physical and dependable. Plus, he's loyal.
Just as a side note, Abu, if he retires, because he ages out of basketball, you're just going to have him again as a Gola the next year. Yeah.
Right. Well, will he still be Duncan Idaho, or is he technically hate at that point?
Until he has to go against your team, Jason,
right,
and has to defeat Paul, and then he drops the ball and has an awakening.
Yeah.
That's when he becomes Duncan again.
I think the buzzer beater is the thing that triggers his memories. He has to.
Okay, because I'm just thinking from a merchandising standpoint, it might be better. Like, you sell more merch if you change the name right away when he comes back as the Gola, because people, when he comes back, people might say, all right, I already have the Duncan Idaho jersey.
Yeah.
But if you have like the hate jersey, now you're like, oh, well, I gotta buy New Jersey.
Right.
So I'm just
Good
saying
idea.
it from that
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. It works with the Fortnite promotion too, because it's just a different skin for Duncan, Idaho. You know, you collect all the Gola skins.
As kind of an aside, this is what I mean. Like, I don't know that the regular action, like sci-fi popcorn audience is ready for like clone robot Jason Momoa coming back as a character named Hate.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be a tough sell.
Hate. Like,
It feels on the nose hearing it out loud. Yeah.
it feels a little on the nose that he comes back as Hate.
When you read it, it's just like, yeah, that's another name. But hearing it out loud
Right.
really does.
Well, because the Y, it's like the HAYT, so you're like, okay, it's a different.
Yeah,
but
right.
but yeah, when it comes back, when they're just saying, and here is our my emperor, here is a gift,
Right.
the Golad Hate, you just be like, wait, what?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen the Duncan, Idaho discourse online, Jason, but people are already sort of cracking jokes about Duncan, Idaho as a silly name. So
Yeah.
people are not ready.
I mean, it is. I like the name. I like, again, this is kind of like an aside, but one of the things I really love about Dune is the things that made it all the way to 20,000 years in the future.
Yeah.
The stuff that we would recognize. So a name like Duncan, Idaho, or, the Orange Catholic Bible, like something like that. That's like, I can imagine
The literal Jews.
Yes, like that. I can imagine like what the evolution of those things were through the years. So I like the name Duncan.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, for sure.
Weird name, but I like it.
All right, let me round out my basketball team before I hand it off to Leo.
Sure.
Center, Jason, you and I agreed. The Baron
Gotta have him.
totally makes sense here. He's got the suspensors. He's floating around. He can't travel, and he's like a big, imposing guy. Like,
Throw me the ball.
My ball.
Pass me
My game.
Pass me the ball.
exactly. So I think the suspensors really kind of are the loophole that give him the edge there.
Yeah.
Plus his physicality.
He really lingers in the steam room, though. I mean, he really lingers in the steam room
He's
after the
there
game.
all the time. He's there for literal days in the fucking steam room.
Right. Big on mud baths too.
Yeah. You got to fill the whole bathtub with like olive oil and balsamic vinegar and just wait there.
Tastes great. I mean, delicious, but
Yeah, great for your skin. All right, Leo, let's hear your team.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Well, okay. Having deeply researched this by watching Kuroku's Basketball, the anime,
Yeah.
I would say point guard, I'm going to go Peter de Vries University, Peter de Vries. Now, he had a 25-year career with the Harkonnens before his, tooth incident, and he's only made one mistake on the record. So I'm like, he knows how to call a play. He's generally, I think he's pretty crafty. He knows how to kind of figure out how to get to the net, for him or the team. And if we're keeping him on the outside, we're keeping him away from that under the net action. He's not as likely to like literally murder one of the other players, just trying to keep those fouls and those chargings. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Trying to keep that to a minimum. That's my thought there. Next up for shooting guard, I was thinking Leto Atreides.
Whoa.
Dude's got some eagle eyes.
He does.
He spotted the worm way before Liet Kynes did, right?
Yeah, I did.
That's a good point.
Liet Kynes took the L on that one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're like accepted in Village and Siege and you can't fucking see the worm? What are we doing?
Yeah. It's tough. Also, Liet Kynes then getting snuck up on by 3 Starter.
Yeah, come on, Liet Kynes.
Moments after we see a group of Fremen having coffee, notice just a tiny little shadow. It's a tough look, but
It's a very, very tough look. Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that Leto Atreides can make a shot from full court. And just based on his beard alone, I think he can bring us the victory.
Not only that, but like there's I gotta say the thing about Dilf Leto Atreides, dude, is that
Duke, I'd like to fuck.
there's a sex appeal to him and a charm that will, again, for merchandising sake, this is going to sell calendars. This is going to sell tickets. This is going to sell jerseys. This is a guy who, not to put too fine a point on it, but like a trained sister of the Bene Gesserit was just like, I'm in love with this guy.
She got
My
feelings,
training, my training, years of training and conditioning and genetic memory of all the sisters who came before me are telling me produce a daughter, but I'm this guy's cute. What can I say?
Right. Look at this guy. Yeah.
Look at this guy. I want to give him a son because I fucking am dead ass in love with him. And I think that if we can harness that, you've got a great team.
You know, that's what every person on the other team, regardless of their sexual orientation, is going to go, okay,
like,
after this game is over, I'm going to try to get this guy to go out to drinks with me. We're going to like try to get this done.
Yeah.
Totally distracted. Yeah.
100%. I would just be like, listen, with no strings attached, can we just fuck?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
No strings, 0 strings, like whatever it is, but what's up?
Desert power, court power, he's got it all. Yeah.
The whole thing. Spit on me like Stilgar.
I am your table, spit on me. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, there was a TikTok I saw of just him spitting on the table and cutting to someone, and it's that audio in TikTok where they're like, am I attracted to this? I'm attracted to this. Yeah. Am I? Yeah, I am. So, okay. Next up, we have small forward. I'm going to go Hasimir Fenring. Count Fenring. My dude.
You're a big Fenring
Dude,
stan.
The Tom Bombadil of the Dune movie. I don't know that we see this guy.
Yeah, I don't think we see him.
I don't think we get him.
We
I don't
don't.
think we get him.
I hope we do. This dude, I mean, in the book, canonically, he was a Kwisatz Haderach candidate.
Well, almost.
Right.
He had the chance and the capability. You know, he's looking at Paul, one of the most powerful people in history, and going, yeah, I could totally kill him. Like, I've got this. This is fine.
Yeah, he just said that.
And he chooses not to, right? But other than, okay, so that would actually put him at a disadvantage if he was going up against a team with Paul on it. But, you know, point is, he can get anything done. Shaddam the Fourth is like, I need someone who can get stuff done. He trusts Fenring. I trust Fenring as well. 3-pointer, layup, he can probably dunk.
Interesting.
I think he's got it covered.
I call him the almost Haderach. I don't, obviously, like a very dangerous guy, but I wonder if there's enough on-court production from the Count. That's all I'm saying is like,
oh, sure.
He's more he might be more reputation at this point than actual on-court production.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
You know, when push comes to shove, he's just kind of like, I'm not going to do it.
Do you think then he would be like a good coach, like a good he'd be a good person to have advising?
A vet at the end of the bench, or even like a guy like a vet off the bench.
Yeah.
Maybe like an assistant coach who's just recently retired. Even off the bench, I worry about it because, you know, Shaddam the Fourth called him off the bench,
right.
And Count Fenring was like, I'm not going in. I'm not playing that. I'm sitting this one out.
I was going to say the same thing. What if he sees Paul and betrays you?
Right.
Like,
yeah, I'm sitting this one out.
Yeah.
I think you just have to make that play, right? You see Paul on the other team and you go, you know what? Fenring come off the court. Fenring's like, why? And we're like, we both know why. Dude, just have a seat. The actual Kwisatz Haderach is there. Like, just, it's not going to work. Next up, I have power forward. This is probably controversial, but I'm glad, Jason, that you've set the stage for me to have a non-human player.
Right.
I'm going Shai-Hulud Sandworm for my power forward.
Wow. This is huge. Literally huge.
I know that they grow up to be like 4 times the size of a football field, so getting them onto the court might be a little bit of a challenge, but I'd like someone to stand in the way.
Right.
Like, I want any person to try to stop him from getting to the hoop. And I got to say, I don't think it's going to happen. Best they can do is like hook him and try to steer him away. Like, that's the only thing I can think of working.
Now, here's what I think is great about it. when they do the on-court, you know, the home game presentation where they do all the names and numbers and they, you know, from the University of Caladan, you know, like Duke Leto Atreides.
Yeah.
And then they'll do like Darude's Sandstorm for Shiloh. And then they'll have Shai-Hulud come out. My one worry with Shai-Hulud is that if you're on the road and the crowd starts doing like the stop boom boom, the Shai-Hulud will just fucking veer off the court into the crowd.
The thunder sticks, the crowd going
and
wild.
And it's like it'll be like, oh, what's that? And it'll be just run off after that. And now you're playing 4-on-5 because your starting power forward went after some fucking rhythmical sound and is gone.
Yeah.
I think that's a concern. Also, and this is like, you wouldn't think this with a guy this size, but very small abrasions in his skin throw him completely
He's
off.
like Anakin in that way. Not a fan of sand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's coarse. It's rough.
Very, very small, like, cracks in his endoskeleton cause him to be like, and then he just can't move in the way he needs to move. So it's an issue, but it's an interesting pick. I'll say that.
That's Jason's way of saying your team is shit.
Loud and clear. I get it. It's fine. We're not going to get the championship trophy, but I'm going to have fun losing.
What happens if someone sets up a thumper in the parking lot and your fucking Shiloh's gone?
I mean, I was literally thinking, like, listen, we're playing Staples and there's like raves in like downtown Los Angeles. Yeah, we're down.
He's just like,
we're
I'm
down
out.
to player.
What's that?
I love beats.
I gotta go eat this rave across town.
I had a very clear image of them playing Sandstorm and him just surfacing and eating the court.
Yeah.
So, okay. I mean, listen, it would be good for the first game, probably the first and last game.
It would be pretty exciting.
It would be pretty exciting. And then finally, center. In the same way that y'all have to have Paul on the team, I just feel like I wouldn't be right not having Duncan on the team. So I'm going to go Duncan for my center. Again, he's big, tall. He can get those centers go for like, they get rebounds and stuff, right?
Yes, they do that.
So, also we have to like please the fans a little bit. Jason, you're very merch minded. I appreciate that.
Yeah. We got to sell this merch.
We got to sell the merch.
We got to get income. Duke Leto is also like, I learned it from the Duke. He needs that income. That spice has got to flow, because if it doesn't, we're absolutely fucked here. So we got to move tickets.
Right. Yeah. It's also one of those things. I'm on this arc in Kuroku's basketball where a single center is shutting down the whole other team. I feel like Shai Hulud has gone off to find a rave. Hazimir Fenring just chose not to play today.
Yeah.
And still, Duncan Idaho's going to bring home the victory by himself.
I love it.
He defeated 12 other basketball players by himself before dying in that hallway. So, it also saves us a budget on hiring a mascot, because we just have him.
Nice.
It's great.
Amazing. Jason, can we get your all caps NBA analysis? Which of our three teams is making it to the championship?
Well, I think it's between you and I, Abu. Again, Leo, I think it's an exciting team, but I think there are some obvious weaknesses, and I think we've laid those out. Wow. I don't, honestly, it's...
I mean, you can pick your own. There's no shame in picking your own.
No,
team.
I don't want to do that. I think what you do here's what you do. You put it out as a call to action to the Gom Jabbar fan base, and you say whose team is the best. Get at us at #Gom Jabbar, and you make the audience pick.
That's great.
Get that engagement going.
Get that engagement. I love how business-minded you are, Jason.
Yeah.
All right, let's get down to business. Well, there's one other question. Well, there's two more, but these are quicker, much quicker. We also wanted to play a little game of Fuck, Marry, Kill.
Okay.
And you could either go about this strategically or in more of a silly way. I think Leo and I kind of went different strategies with this.
Always,
but
yeah.
Across all of the characters in the Dune universe,
Yeah.
who would you fuck, who would you marry, who would you kill, and what's your reasoning behind those, silly or strategic?
Well, I'm going to go now. Let me first say that what I'm about to say is from the perspective of Paul, and I appreciate that this character is like 16, which is an issue. That said, fuck Chani, marry Princess Irulan, and kill Jameis.
There you go.
I'm going the Paul route. He has laid it out for us.
Yes, the Paul trifecta.
I'm going to follow in his sand walking footsteps. Because how can you go wrong? He did it. He gave us the blueprint. Fuck Chani, marry Princess Irulan. Which, listen, it was a business decision, and I think the right business decision, a smart business decision. It brought the conflict to an early end. Princess Irulan was suspect in her own right. That said, he knew what was going on.
Right,
he knew that the birth control poisons were going out.
Yeah,
and he eventually got Chani off of those. To a very dramatic effect. And then of course, like killing Jameis, he didn't want to do it, as I don't want to do it. Jameis, there's a lot of wisdom and experience there.
Friend of Jameis, yep.
But Jameis asked for it. He fucked around and found out, and that's what happened.
Literally.
So
yeah.
So that's my answer.
Very good answer. Love it.
Follow the Paul template.
Yeah.
Because he won out. He ended up on top.
Yeah, he did do it.
He is the Lisan al-Qaid.
Right.
He is doing that.
Right.
It seemed the right way.
Well, I went a slightly different route. I reached far into later books for my own picks. I decided, fuck Hui Nori, a character from God Emperor of Dune, simply because she's sort of, if she's good enough for the God Emperor who ruled for 3,500 years,
Yes.
I frankly, I think she's good enough for me. And it doesn't even have to be a physical thing.
Yeah.
Clearly, she aroused something in the God Emperor just on an emotional level.
Yes.
He famously does not have genitals, so that's...
Yeah.
Right. Physicality, a little tough for him, but Hui still aroused those feelings. And I think if she can do that without touch, boy, I can't wait to see what she can do with touch. As far as Mary, I went a little bit more strategic. I did go the Paul route.
Sure.
As far as Mary Irulan,
Yeah, you have to. It's smart.
I think I would fall into the same category of like marry her, but not really like share a bed with her sort of situation.
Right.
She can go off and do her own thing. But that is my path to the throne, clearly, is through Irulan. Right. So I got to use her.
It's just the family photos and holidays. That's the only time you're really hanging out with Irulan.
Exactly. Just the official stuff.
The Christmas card, yeah.
She's writing her books and stuff and getting those published, but that's
exactly
her own thing.
Maybe on a good day I'll read one of her first drafts. And then finally, as far as kill, I think I would kill my competition. I feel like I would go for the king. I would go for Paul.
How would you do it?
Yeah. Good question. How would you kill Paul?
How would you do it?
Based off of what happened in Messiah, I would probably not go hand him Duncan, Idaho route.
Sure. Psychic poison doesn't seem to work.
It almost, I mean, it seemed like it might have almost worked at one point.
It was close. Yes, it was close.
Yeah.
It didn't quite work.
Right. So I think my move, and again, I don't know how effective this would be, but based off of how close the stone burner got, as far as at least getting his eyes, which he saw coming, he knew it was going to happen. Some combination, I think, of a stone burner shot from a Spacing Guild ship so that he can't see it.
Yeah. Can't see it. He can't see it.
He doesn't see it coming. It's a blind spot. But I feel like Stoneburner, and like I know there's some casualties there, some innocents
I was gonna say,
nearby.
You are risking the entire planet, my friend.
I mean, to be fair, you're killing a guy who killed by his own account, 65 billion people or whatever it is.
That's a lot of people.
Right.
That's fair. Okay.
So, I feel like not only am I taking out my competition to the throne, but I'm potentially preventing a jihad that, like you said, Jason killed 60 plus billion people. I know there's a whole stagnation of humanity thing. Maybe I'll figure out some way to deal with that myself.
Yeah.
But I got to axe Paul and get him out of my way.
Oh, man. Pretty good.
All right, Leo, you're up.
Okay, well, with all of my answers, I was tempted to say Clairby. Famously the bus driver for the Bene Gesserit on Wallach. Yeah. He's my favorite on Chapter House. He's my favorite character. Again, I stan him until the end of days. So I was tempted to say Clairby for fuck. Again, if he can handle a shuttle, I'm pretty sure he can handle me. But I'm going to go with hurrah on this one.
You better treat her with respect.
Listen.
That she deserves.
She deserves so much respect.
She's a mother.
She's wonderful. And after seeing her in... We're reading through Messiah right now. She's just a lovely...
Skin is a little dry. I mean, can we get her some lotion?
I'll treat her right. Listen, I mean, again, we're only fucking, but like...
Little ashy, but a wonderful person.
Listen, I bring the moisture. It's fine.
Yeah.
Next up, for Mary, again, tempted to say Clairby. He's got a stable job, and he's used to crazy shit. But I think in this case, I'm going to go Esmar Tuick.
Oh, wow.
The smuggler. Leader of the smugglers.
Okay, that's a curveball.
Yeah.
He's gallivanting. He's a smuggler. He's a ne'er-do-well, a rogue,
sure,
a vagabond. But he also gets invited to fancy dinner parties, and he, handles himself well.
I mean, listen, and again, just like a devil's advocate, what about, are you concerned at all about the people around him?
Sure.
In his, smuggling cruise, and who they might be, and, what they might be up to.
As much as I am, I hear you.
Are you marrying into a Tony Soprano situation? Because
I think considering Gurney, who I generally respect and like Gurney as a character, considering he seemed to fare pretty well with the smugglers, I'm going to use Gurney's success with the smugglers.
He fell right into it.
He fell into it, and he didn't, I think the other Atreides men, many of them left planet, but I think that they kind of melded. I like to think, and I don't have any solid reason to think otherwise, that the smugglers are they're rough around the edges, but they've got golden hearts.
Right.
They're just doing their business in a fucked up world. And I respect that. And I'm happy to play ball a little bit, to borrow an idiom from an earlier question. Yeah. So, hear you. And that's a good point. Good thing to consider while I'm walking down the aisle. And then finally, to kill, again, Clairby would come back as a Gola because he struck a deal with the Bene Gesserit, so he's a good pick. But honestly, Korba, because fuck Korba. Korba's a piece of shit.
Great. I love it.
And then those are my answers.
That's a great pick. I agree on Korba.
Garbage person.
All right. One more bonus question for you, Jason.
Yep.
While we're on the topic of fuck, marry, kill, and while we're on the topic of hurrah, who do you think, Jason, is the biggest horn dog in the Dune saga? Who has the highest body count in all of Dune?
Right.
Well, I mean, like, if you want to, I picked Hurrah because because you've got the actual visual evidence of the horn. Like, she's got the kids, so that it's happening. Don't discount either Fade Routha or the Baron Harkonnen. They were in those pleasure palaces.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Cutting it up to a massive degree.
Right.
But obviously I am loath to pick them because Fade then goes in and has to strangle everybody, which is a tough vibe to bring into this kind of positive thing that we're doing. Fade having to murder many of the consorts of House Harkonnen. I think it's a tough thing that he had to do, but he was asked to do it. So I'm going to stick with Hurrah.
Yeah. If you had to ballpark a number for Hurrah, I mean, we have the evidence on the
entire siege. I think the siege, we understand that it fucking stinks in there. It smells like fucking shit.
Yeah.
Because they're shitting and pissing themselves all the time.
Right,
and then they get in there and they take off their Stillsuits and it's just the smell of dried shit and piss in the air, and they love it. They're like, this
smells like home.
Smells like home. It's fucking amazing. And I think that they are just it's the culture of the sieges. It's very intimate. We are all together. We share each other's water. And I think that extends to the act of physical love.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Hurrah.
Literal orgies. Yeah.
Yeah, literal orgies. I hope they just take a baby wipe and wipe it up because again, they are disgusting. The Fremen are gross.
Yes, I saw your tweets the other day about Stillsuits and Fremen and
the thigh pads.
It's got to be absolutely disgusting. Imagine the smell of taking off a stillsuit after weeks in the desert, or whatever the fuck it is. It would just be horrendous.
Right.
Also, not to get way too into it, but you think about how dehydrated their bodies must be. Just the smell of their piss is going to be
just
unimaginably bad.
It's unimaginable. And you're drinking it. You're drinking your piss.
Yeah.
All the time.
Right. Right.
Drinking piss, you go in there and it's like, oh, I'll have a double Fremen espresso, and you just hear them hopping up spit into a little cup. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Wow, we have veered off into dangerous territory. But Hurrah's a great pick. I love that. We're big Hurrah fans on this podcast.
Yeah.
And we hope that she makes it into part 2.
Indeed.
Because I think she deserves to be on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we get that.
As far as my pick for highest body count, I'm going to cheat a little bit here and pick Duncan Idaho and all of his Golas. Because if we count
right.
all 3,500 years of Duncan Idaho existing over and over and over again, I feel like even if he is busy trying to assassinate the God Emperor for most of that,
right,
there's some downtime.
Yeah.
And I think 3,500 years is a very long time to pump your numbers up.
Yeah.
And obviously we've established that canonically he's a very attractive and physically fit man.
Yeah.
And in the movie, he's literally Jason Momoa. And I I don't think it'd be hard for him to find his one-night stands and his no-strings-attached hookups every now and then in between plotting the downfall of the God Emperor.
Especially in the galactic center. He's in the capital city of the universe. Like there's tourism, right. People are there. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Now, for my pick, again, I think Duncan is the clear choice if you're looking at like, yeah, all Golos are the same person. But I think for a single lifetime, I said Margot Fenring.
Okay.
I think...
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we learned that she is literally a breeding sister. So within the sisterhood, her job is to sleep with people and like gather babies via seduction. And I think that like if we looked at the Honored Matres or if we looked at some of the characters that are introduced in Heretics and Chapter House, similarly, their whole job is basically to get with people. So they probably do rack up the numbers pretty quickly. But ultimately, I just like Margot Fenring.
Yeah.
Like she's got...
I mean, who wouldn't?
She's great.
Right.
I mean, who wouldn't?
Right.
I mean, she's wonderful.
Fade was fine with it.
She's just getting her fucking back blown out like all the time.
Yeah, Fade was fine with it. And again, like she's out here with her husband. Her husband's supportive. Like he's great.
Yeah.
And she's a powerful sexual woman, owns her sexuality. And I bet she has some great stories to tell.
I love that.
So I think Margot's my pick.
Okay, great one.
Yeah, that's great. I think canonically that one makes the most sense, probably.
Yeah. Well.
That's a great pick. Whew. All right, Jason, we've taken up enough of your time. Thank you so much for bringing some incredible sports energy to this podcast, which is something we've desperately been lacking because...
Our main feedback we get from fans, yeah.
Right.
More
Can you guys
sports.
talk about basketball more? Like,
yeah.
What do you think about how the Raptors did? Or are the Raptors a team?
Abu, that's a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to have you, and obviously we're such big fans, so we're over here geeking out just to be able to be on mic with you. Such an honor.
Totally.
Oh, thanks. That's so kind.
Just here at the end of the podcast, we want to give you the space and hand the mic to you. Tell the listeners where they can find you online and listen to all your awesome stuff.
Sure. My sports podcast, Takeline, comes out every Tuesday. Find it wherever you get your podcasts. My pop culture podcast, X-Ray Vision, comes out every Wednesday. Find it wherever you get your podcasts. All Caps NBA drops on Fridays on YouTube. Check it out. And the official podcast for Foundation on Apple TV Plus is currently getting dropped into your feeds from the Apple Podcast app. So check that out too if you're watching that show.
Wow.
Which is really good.
Are you like busy or something?
So you've got nothing going on, it sounds like.
No. I mean, like as an aside, we tape that like all in 2 weekends, like the Apple TV. Yeah, that we knocked it out.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was wondering.
Yeah.
Because I have been watching Foundation and listening to that. That's amazing. Yeah, we'll have all of those links in the show notes for our folks.
Awesome.
And once again, thank you for joining us. This was so much fun.
Thanks a lot, yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care. Well, friends, there is no real ending. It's just the place where you stop the recording. But this podcast is always one step beyond logic, so help spread the word of Muad'Dib and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And be sure to check out the other shows on the Lore Party Podcast Network on loreparty.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at @lore_party. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, he who controls the podcast controls the universe. We'll see you on the golden path.